we can get through it all. Turning point, recovery. Turning point, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Navigating Your Turning Point, a podcast about recovery, where we embrace multiple pathways to recovery. I'm John, and this is my co-host, Jeff.
Because there's no wrong way to recover.
Tonight's episode is navigating through major holidays and events. We recently experienced the holiday trifecta, the Bermuda Triangle, or the perfect storm of potential triggers. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's in less than 40 days. Exhausting? Anxiety-filled? Chaotic? Yes. A reason to pick up? No. I am happy to report our cast and crew all survived while remaining clean and sober. How do we feel about the holidays? How did we cope? What advice would we offer to those who really struggle during these times? Let's find out.
Well,
Jeff, how were your holidays?
They were actually pretty quiet. You know, when I think about recovery during the holidays, it's usually not a big triggering event for me at this point. You know, we should probably say that for now, I'm about 11 months clean and sober.
Congrats.
And that's a huge feat for me. I'm further than I ever thought I would be. You know, prior to this, it was like maybe a 6-month stint that I had too. So this is the longest time I've ever had, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of why we came here, to like really not just to talk to folks that have been in recovery for a long time. This is for everyone, even for those who might even be struggling right now, especially during this time frame that we just passed during the holidays, right? So the holidays for me were quiet. They weren't anything too special. I have twin 4-year-olds. They're awesome. It was such a great holiday. I acted like a kid again. I played with toys for like a full day with them. It was awesome. We had a lot of fun. New Year's Eve, it's not like it used to be, John.
No, it's not.
No. No entrance fees, no tickets, no bottles at the tables anymore. None of that stuff. It was a cupcake party with my twins. And the Jungle Book movie. That's how rockin' New Year's Eve mine was. How about yours?
Quiet as well. Yeah, I always called, when I was out there running, I called New Year's Eve amateur night. Every drunken crazy in the world was out there on the road, and I was doing it the other 7 nights of the week, so I didn't have to wait till New Year's. So it was very quiet. I know Turning Point put on a tremendous bash. They had great attendance. A lot of new people showed up. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. But it went to prove to everyone that you can really have fun while being sober. You do not need the substance to have fun. I heard people dance, they sang. I've seen some video clips of it. And it looks like a good time was had by all. You know, my Christmas, a little chaotic. I was with my ex, her side of the family, and we had 25 people for dinner. And to me, I don't like chaos. Maybe that's something that gets to me. But it's also much better. The biggest trigger for me in the past was isolation.
Yep.
If you are by yourself, I can certainly understand how and why you struggle. So I think it's very important to surround yourself, whether it be, if you're an AA person, they have alkathons, if they had something at certain clubs, but anything except be by yourself. Because when you're left only with your own thoughts, as the saying goes, sometimes you get a lot of stinking thinking.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's the thing about holidays too, is that it's not so much the actual events during the holidays, it's what happens after the events, the feelings that you have because you didn't get to drink. Maybe you're new in recovery. Maybe you're years into it, but holidays, you do remember the times that you did have when you were using. And
Certainly do.
when the event is over and you're cleaning up and you're going back to work or whatever, you start thinking of those events and like, why didn't I drink? Why couldn't I drink this time? And then that's when it starts to maybe become a little bit difficult for some, you know. That's how what I felt like in recovery is like I missed the times that I could handle it, forgetting about the times that I couldn't. And then it wasn't so much the actual event that was the trigger, it was the feelings I had after the event had occurred, you know? And I'm sure in the past, without even having an example come to my mind right now, but I'm sure that's what led me to drinking in the past, I'm sure. So for those out there now who have completed this trifecta, and I like how you called it that, you know, you may be thinking right now, like, oh man, the events ended. Now you're starting to get a little bit stressed. Now you're starting to get anxiety because you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about how the fact that maybe you barely got through, maybe you were sweating it out, whatever it took to get through it. Don't stress now. I mean, try to talk to somebody now, you know, now that the event's over. Get out there, make a phone call if you need to, or talk to a friend or a family member. Make sure that you're talking about it if you're thinking about it, because that's when it starts. That's when relapse starts, is when you're thinking about it. It starts before the drink is even picked up. We know that. You know what I mean?
I do. Absolutely concur. Yeah, ask for help. And don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's a friend, people at Turning Point. They field phone calls all the time. You and I have a similar story. We just walked into Turning Point one day, knocked on the door. We were met by somebody, introduced themselves, and what brought you here? We had a little conversation, and would you like to sit down and talk about it for 10 or 15 minutes if you have the time? And I did. And I was very appreciative of that, because I didn't have somebody to turn to or talk to. And how many times people that I knew in recovery, they said, John, you're supposed to call me before you pick up, not after you pick up.
Right.
Then it's too late. And I neglected that a lot in the past. But not anymore. And the other thing about the holidays, maybe you shared this as well with your family, everybody gets a little worried about John.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do we need to have a dry holiday? Nobody can drink. We can't have alcohol in the house.
They feel the need to ask for permission.
Absolutely. And I find that ridiculous. I mean, you know, I'm a big boy. Everybody else should lead their own lives, especially if they can control it. And if I wanted to drink or pick up tomorrow, it's very easy. I can go right down the street or go to any bar or restaurant and do it. But I choose not to.
Absolutely. And one cool thing that happened over the holidays for me too, actually, is I brought my cousin to Turning Point from New York. She came and visited. She was home for the holidays. And come to find out, she's 7.5 months sober. I didn't know that. And we are the same age. We graduated together. We walked down the graduation aisle together. We were like we are best friends, but we were like really tight back in high school. And yeah, we ran together, we drank together, we partied together. And I didn't know that she was going down the same path. And she wound up talking to me about it a lot. And I said, well, I got a fire pit meeting on Thursday night. You want to come with me? And I'm actually going to be the guest speaker. You want to come down and hear the story? And she did. It was awesome. And that was the first time I've ever had a family member with me at the recovery center, at any type of recovery meeting that I've ever had. So it was awesome. What a bond, you know? So I'm now kind of entering this stage where I'm here at a podcast. I'm bringing my family members. I'm talking to friends that I haven't spoken to in so long. I'm actually kind of getting into a point where I'm willing to help others now. I'm willing to be here to help those who are questioning, do I have a problem, or should I need to talk to somebody, or what? Maybe you're really sick and you don't know where to turn. Turning Point can be a place where you can come, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the only tool. They can guide you to the other tools that maybe you're required to do, or maybe you just need in general. They're a resource center. It doesn't necessarily have to be, it's like a home base for me, but there's other tools in the toolkit, you know what I mean? So don't forget about those other tools, and they'll help you find those other tools too. So that's something important to remember.
Well, that's what drew me to Turning Point, and that's what keeps me coming back, is the multiple paths to recovery. I started with AA, and it worked for me, but it wasn't the be-all and end-all by itself. I needed more. I said, well, that's nice, but at Turning Point, maybe there's a seminar on wellness recovery. They have workshops on step work. They have social activities, and all of these things to me are tools in the toolbox. But the biggest thing to me, it is a sense of community second to none that I have ever found. I never found that in AA or any other group, and that community supports me, lifts me up, and it keeps my sobriety always in the forefront of my mind, which is important. I need to go to meetings, I need to be around people, I need to say the words that I am an alcoholic. I have to say it out loud to remind myself every day.
Yep.
Because if I don't, it gets real easy to slip. And the other last thing that I'll say is that sobriety is a gift, and to comment on what you said about helping others, this is a gift that we cannot keep to ourselves. It is a gift that we're meant to give to others.
So yeah, Jules is going to be here tonight. She is our liaison, our front runner, our guide, basically our champion to the podcast. She's the one that makes it happen, coordinates with Walpole High to have us this phenomenal spot, does all the emailing, and really just makes this something at Turning Point, and gives us a vehicle to be able to express ourselves and help those who are listening and watching.
Absolutely. She is the catalyst behind this.
Awesome.
Without Jules, none of this would take place. She keeps us all in our place, emails to everyone, what changes, times, places, dates, and she's a dynamo.
Yeah.
And I believe she is, her title is, she is a recovery support specialist. And I know that she recently completed recovery coach training. So she is now a certified recovery coach trainer.
Actually, I think she's working on that. I think most recently she became a clinician, and now she's working on being a recovery coach. We'll let her explain it. Let's bring in our next guest.
That's
Jules.
right. Okay.
All right, so Jules, welcome. You're typically behind the scenes, getting everything done for us. But now you're out here, and we're going to be talking to you. Let's just start by making sure we had everything right with the intro. You're a recovery support specialist. You recently became a clinician.
Yes.
And you're currently working on becoming a recovery coach and getting your certification?
I am, yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, so, tell us a little bit about yourself and, your role at Turning Point.
So a little bit about myself. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so grateful to be here. So a little bit about myself. I grew up with a single mom, actually in Walpole. I went to Walpole High, where this is being held right now. So I ended up, of course, doing the routine of, partying too hard. I was a social butterfly. I still am, for sure. And later on in life, it just became more of a problem, but I didn't see myself having a problem. My dad is actually an alcoholic, so I did have experience with that growing up. But mainly, the way that I got to where I am today is I just ended up waking up one day and noticing that my life was in complete disarray. I couldn't pay my bills. I was in school at the time. It was impossible. I was failing out of school. But it's kind of funny because before that, when I was in my throes of addiction, I was doing well. I was, getting A's and working full time, going to school full time. But that came to an end when I dove too far into my addiction. And but I always knew I wanted to help people throughout my whole life. I always knew I wanted to either be a therapist or something, but of course, education and school is very expensive. And I was paying my way because my older sister, her student loans scared the crap out of me. So I was like, okay, let's figure out a way that I can help somebody or figure this out. But it wasn't until I started getting sober and being in recovery that I was like, I know what I want to do now in my life. I want to help everybody that has a substance abuse disorder. And I want to educate myself. I want to educate other people. And I just want to be that power person, that person that, a good resource, someone that, can be there to relate. We all have our own journeys in recovery. We've all had our own journey, having a substance use disorder. If you're an alcoholic or an addict with drugs, type of thing. So I ended up going to UMass Boston. Bill Carlo was the director of the program, interviewed me. I was completely honest with my recovery and how I wanted to help people. And he was like, boom, you're in the program. And I was like, fantastic. And so I went 2 years at UMass Boston to become a clinician. And then I got a job, actually I interned at Rockland Recovery Support Center, which is a great place. And then I ended up getting a job at High Point in Brockton, working at Section 35 Detox. It was actually the men's section. And it was challenging because, of course, they were sectioned, so a lot of them didn't believe that they needed to be there, didn't think they had a problem. And it was tough. And, being clinician, a lot of it is documentation, treatment plans, biopsychs, and you really didn't, I missed having that opportunity to talk to them more about aftercare. What are your plans? What are your goals? What can we do to help you? So I worked there for 9 months. I still per diem there, but I started looking at other resources, and my aunt, believe it or not, was like, I see this Turning Point Recovery Support Center in Walpole, and I think you should check it out. And of course I did. I walked right in and I met Gerard, who is the best. And he told me, yes, we're hiring. And I filled out an application, did interviews. And luckily I was blessed by them and they hired me. And it's just been a godsend ever since. And I couldn't be more grateful for where I am today. And especially to be with you lovely people.
That's awesome. I remember meeting you the first time at the fire pit meeting that I typically attend. It works with my schedule, and there's always like an event at Turning Point that can fit into your schedule, whether it's during the day, a morning, or at night, weekend, whatever, and I could just tell you were bringing so much energy to the table, like to that meeting, and that you were going to be so successful at Turning Point. And then when the idea came up to have this podcast, you just you didn't even think twice about it. You just were like, let's do it, let's go. And John, Jeff, you're going to be on the mic, and let's get this going. And I was like, I've always wanted to do a podcast, television show. This is like a dream come true to me, So we're in episode 2, and we're talking about. And thank you for your share. That was fantastic. That was a great snapshot as to what you're doing for the recovery community and what you've done. And I think, sky's the limit here. You're still in your rookie year at Turning Point, right?
Yes, so I still am.
You've got a lot more work to do here.
Yes, I do.
Right?
Yes, I do. And I'm looking forward to it.
So we're talking tonight about navigating through events and holidays, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us about your holidays that we just passed, and how did it all go, and maybe some memories from the past, both good or bad.
Yeah, so So this past holiday was really good. So since I come from a divorced family, it's like how you were saying, John, it's chaotic.
Yep.
So I go to New Hampshire to see my dad's side, and then I have my mom's side on Christmas Eve. And I've been doing that since I was a little kid. So I guess so the holidays itself, I enjoy now because I've been in long-term recovery for at least, honestly, I kind of forget the day. Like a lot of people are like set on the days and the years and all that. And me personally, I just look at it like every day it's a new day and I just keep moving forward. And I just try not to think too much of the past. But of course, like I'm doing also a lot of inner child work as well, which is great. So that's also helped me in the holidays recently. Because it's bringing things up and making me aware of things that, might trigger me. And I love the pause method. So if I'm in a situation where, I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed or, I'm just, having a little bit of anxiety because I actually suffer very badly with anxiety. It'll just come up whenever. Even if I'm having a conversation, the conversation is perfectly fine, it sometimes just creeps up. There's like no rhyme or reason to it. But so I do the pause thing and I will just either quietly if I can sneak away, go outside, take a little walk. And I always try to make a plan. So, for example, I heard from one of my coworkers that when she goes out, she'll have a drink in her hand so someone doesn't say, "Do you want a drink? Can I offer?" Because that's the first thing when you go to a party or anything. "Oh, let me get you a drink," So just like having that already set in your hand so that question doesn't even come to you. I thought that was phenomenal, and I feel like if you have a plan, and and having a higher power, and being kind to yourself, and allowing yourself to have those emotions, type of thing.
Sure.
But what I did not like, and this is every year, is my papa on my mom's side. He was a big father figure to me. So I miss him every single day. He passed away when I was 12, and so that definitely still hurts.
Yeah.
Because he was a big part of my life. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
If I may, I can relate to that. I spent the last several Christmases with the other half of the family, so to speak. Yes, my mom and my dad, all of my aunts and uncles, everybody's passed away. And all I have left, and I'm very blessed, it's not all I have left, I have tremendous gratitude. I have 3 children, and I have 1 sister, 1 niece, 1 nephew, and I try to spend as much time with them as humanly possible. I don't take anything for granted anymore. Tomorrow is promised to no one, as we all know.
That's right.
So, but I understand the difficulty of missing someone. It's just not the same.
I love the strategy of having a drink in your hand too.
Yes.
Because that was huge for me when I was using, right? Like I probably would pour my first glass of wine and before anybody told me to have one, right? Like sometimes you take like the same type of strategies as you were using, but in reverse them, right? Like before, when you wanted to use, you would just go make yourself a drink and you'd be the first one drinking typically, right? And in that way, no one is really asking you then either. Well, do that now, just do it with a soda or something like that, you know what I mean? Or water, whatever it is. And then, it's that same strategy, but reversed. And it works because the holidays are an opportunity too, because there's folks that you haven't seen in your family in a long time. And if you're at the point where you start to share, because the more you share with people, the stronger your recovery network gets, and it helps you. So like that's what happened this Christmas with my cousin, more sharing. She wound up coming to a meeting,
Yeah.
some of the family members that I don't see on a regular basis who don't really know my story are getting to know the story. So it's also an opportunity during these events as well. What do you think?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the best conversations that I had was when I made amends with my family, and a lot of them didn't even knew I had a problem.
Yeah.
They, because the excuse I would use was, oh, I'm just tired because I'm working all the time and full-time school and this and that and the third. But it's because they didn't see me all the time. So, because I don't see my family that often. I see my mom's side, but my dad's side, since they're in New Hampshire and stuff, it's just hard to get to them, unfortunately, sometimes. But yeah, so it was nice to have those conversations and to let them know, like, this is who I am. It's not all of me. It's just something I just have, and it's something I work on every single day, as well as my mental health. And yeah, you just keep pushing forward. That's what I do, and it was great to just have those conversations. So I totally agree with you, because there was a few members of my family that were like, "Thank you for admitting that, because I was thinking I might have a problem." Or something like that, and it gets them thinking,
Absolutely. I mean, so what you've been through, like the clinician side and things like that, I'm not sure if maybe you saw an uptick during the holidays, like of people entering programs and stuff like that. What do you think, in your humble opinion, what do you think makes the holidays and events so difficult for many folks in recovery? Is it a potential trigger, and if so, why? And what is the single most important advice you would give to those folks?
So for someone especially that's in early recovery, for me, everything was a trigger almost. It was, little things, like even things on TV, like that show Intervention, which is a great show, but in early recovery, I couldn't watch it because it just brought too many memories, too many things. So I would stay away from things like that. And the biggest thing for me was finding connection, finding those resources, going to a support center, going to meetings. Like at Rockland Recovery, my favorite quote that they had was, "The opposite of addiction is connection." I could not agree with that more. Mm-hmm. When I was in the throes of addiction, my friends never really called to see how I was doing. Like, it's my sober friends that are like, "Where are you? What's going on?" if I don't show up somewhere, and that type of thing. And having that, that support system to go to, like how you were saying before, Jeff, like, before you pick up that drink, make that phone call. Call someone first. Ask for help. I feel like some people, think like asking for help is a sign of weakness. No, it's a sign of strength, if anything, because you're looking for, guidance. You're looking for, you're being vulnerable, and, uncomfortable, and allowing yourself to do that. And when you get to the other side of it, it's a beautiful thing. And, and I also just want to add too, like, for the longest time, like, I thought, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm morally corrupt because I did so many awful things. No, that was not me. That's not who I am. I am a compassionate person. I care a lot for everybody. I'm a big person in service. Like, I was talking today to a friend about how, when I'm in anxiety, I will be at a grocery store, and if I see someone struggling getting their groceries in the car, I go right up to them. "Let me help you." And like, I'll forget about my anxiety, everything, and then I'll forget like what I even was anxious about in the first place. So I guess, and what was the other question you were saying about, like, what
Like, could the holidays be a trigger? And if so, like, what's kind of the advice that you would give folks?
So the advice that I would give is to definitely, like I was saying, like reach out to people, and like I said, like be kind to yourself. Like I couldn't look in the mirror for so long because I was so distraught, and it wasn't until I had that support system that what people were telling me, and I have a personal therapist as well, letting me know that you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel these things. Feel it and then let it go. Mm-hmm. And of course that can be a lot easier said than done, but if you keep using those tools and those skills, they build up and they work. And anything can work if you strive for it and you've got the goals to do it, and just don't give up. Like in your past episode, in the first episode, when you were talking about boxing, which I love, John, that when when they get punched or whatever and they're on the ground, they get right back up. Always get right back up. Do not let anyone make you feel like you're not worth it or anything like that. And don't let the little things get to you during holidays. Just try to focus on yourself, your self-care, and just know your limit, type of thing.
One thing that you mentioned too in your advice in early recovery is, maybe you shouldn't attend these things or shouldn't attend certain events. And I can remember on a couple of occasions where I opted out of certain events that I wasn't ready for. Mm-hmm. And to make it kind of comical a little bit, it could be a way for you to use that tool if it's an event, a holiday party that you don't want to go to yet.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Stay with your close circle or go find a meeting instead. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying to stay away from your family forever, but maybe that event you're not ready for yet, and you make that judgment call. Mm-hmm. I mean, John, you've mentioned on a couple of occasions.
I have, and I think what's most important, the family and friends may not like you for it or love, but you have to take care of yourself first. Right. You have to know what's important to you, and you have to put yourself first. Mm-hmm. Not at the expense of everything else. Yeah. I mean, I went through the same thing. I lived in upstate New York for 19 years, and I was supposed to go to a huge event this summer. Mm-hmm. And I have friends up there. I call them my second family, and I just did not trust myself. If I walked into that environment, I knew that they would expect that Good Time John is back in town, and they'd be putting everything in front of me left and right. And I would have probably had a very difficult time saying no. So I put that temptation in front of myself. Yeah. So it was easy just to say, don't go. You're not ready.
That was the same weekend that you attended one of the softball games, right?
I think it was.
Was it the one that you told me to pitch the guy high?
It was exactly that.
All right, so thank God you didn't go, man.
This big strapping guy came up and I said, I was watching him. He kept swinging at the first pitch and high pitches. I mean, obvious balls. And I said to Jeff, who was pitching, I said, pitch him high, he's going to go for it. And he did every time, and he struck out 2 or 3 times in a row. So we just took that away from them.
There's a lot of positives, folks, about avoiding these things that you can't go to or don't want to go to yet or you're not ready for.
That's
There's
correct.
silver linings to everything.
Yeah. And that's okay.
And that's fine.
That's
Absolutely.
okay. And if you can talk to your family and let them know that, because me personally, I try to be honest as much as possible, because when I was in my throes of addiction, I wasn't honest at all.
Right.
at all. So now I try to live only by my truth, be my authentic self, and always be honest. And I will tell my family, I can't do it. I can't, not this time, type of thing. If you can do that with your family.
Jules, if I may.
Yes.
Finish this sentence for me. Today, Jules is
grateful and so appreciative. I could go on and on and on, and especially being at Turning Point, It is my second home. They're my family. You all are my family. I can go to each and every single one of you for advice, for guidance, for, just because I'm also work there too doesn't mean I don't learn from you guys as well. Like, it helps me also in my recovery to hear your shares, hear your stories, and what you're struggling with and whatnot, and having that, to relate with,
I think that's a really good point. I mean, that's one of the messages of this podcast and or telecast, whatever you want to call it, is that we don't know it all. We're not trying to preach that we know everything for the recovery community. John and I are learning, doing
Every
this.
day.
And that's part of the message that we're trying to get across. So our last question is one that we ask everyone. Okay. Nice. It's an opportunity for the guest to kind of get whatever it is off your chest. What is the one thing that you can tell us today that you haven't shared before, to maybe only your immediate circle, of course, but that you haven't shared at a meeting or shared at one of these types of events?
I guess so I speak a lot when I share about trauma that I've been through and stuff like that, but, and of course my story, but the one thing that I don't share enough, and I should, is I've always wanted to have a relationship with my father. And I don't really talk about that. That's something that I would like to have with him. More like we have like a relationship, but I'd like it to be deeper and more meaningful for sure.
Yeah, I can understand. I can relate to that. My relationship with my father has changed a lot since I've become sober, and because it was one thing that we did together and bonded together on. So things have changed a lot for that. So I relate, and I hope that that progresses and moves forward for you. John, any final thoughts?
I wish you nothing but the best. I have to chime in with that as well. I have kind of an estranged relationship with my two daughters, and that is the most important thing in my life right now that I am working on every single day, to try to form a deeper bond, and maybe they'll forgive me for the absence for most of their lives. And so I totally get that from the dad point of view, because I am old enough to be your dad.
Well, they talk about yets a lot in active using, like that's yet to happen, or and there's a lot of yets in recovery. So that's yet to happen maybe for you, and it could happen and come to fruition down the road. We love chatting with you today, Jules. We thank you so much for sharing with us, and we thank you so much for all you do at Turning Point and everything you do for the podcast. It really means a lot to us. We're very grateful.
Please, thank you guys so much. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so glad this is happening.
You are a bright, shining star, and you light up every room that you walk into, Miss Jules.
Thanks, John. You're the best. Thank you
Awesome.
guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was great having Jules here, having her out front talking to us. I mean, like we were talking to her about, she's the shining star. She's the reason this came to fruition, and one of the reasons why we're doing it with Turning Point.
Oh, absolutely. It was a hoot to see her here. I usually see her behind the desk in the office, just going a mile a minute.
Yep.
But she is definitely a multitasker, something that I do not excel at very well.
Yeah, she really brought this to fruition, and I think she was so nervous before the podcast even started.
And for what reason?
I don't think so.
I saw no evidence of nerves whatsoever. She was very articulate. Her story was very compact, and she was a wonderful guest.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we're going to see her more. She's part of the team.
She is part of the team.
She's going to be out here again. She may even host one of these, right, Jules? So we're excited for that. And we're also excited to bring on other guests that we have in the Turning Point community, other podcast team members that we're going to have on the show. They're going to be running some of these episodes themselves too. It's not going to be just John and John every single time. And we're excited too.
Well, I hope not John and John.
Did I say John and John?
You did say John and
No,
John. How about John and Jeff? I am not a one-man show, and there's no I in team, so.
It's not the John and John show.
It certainly is
All
not.
right, John and Jeff. Yeah, it's not going to be us every single time. Is
That's
what
correct.
I guess I was trying to say.
That's correct.
But yeah, we're excited to, as we're getting into this a little bit now, John, we're starting to, show some of the team members. We're starting to get a feel for what our message is all about, what our mission is. And I think it's going to be a real great segue into our third episode. Definitely stay tuned next week as we release a new one. It's going to be all about relapse, and we're going to bring in the director of Turning Point. So it's going to be exciting. Stay tuned.
Absolutely, stay tuned, and we have many more thoughts in the back of our heads. We won't reveal them today, but we're looking forward to episode 4, 5, and 6. And everyone out there that's listening and watching, we hope you'll stay with us and let us gain some traction with you.
Remember, there's no wrong way to recover.
And remember, it feels good to feel good.
I love that ending.
It's a long,
Love that ending. No.
we can get through it all.
I did the two finger thing last time and I liked it. I do it.
Turning point, recovery. Turning point.